Thank you, Libby. Matt, I'm afraid, is struggling to get online this morning, so I think we'll pick things up and he can catch up later. Welcome to everybody this morning. This clearly is, we've got some time to hear from our colleagues from the council talking about the latest proposals on the clean air zone. A lot of interest. I think we've got around 55, 60 people due to be on the call this morning. We, from the Business West Chamber Initiative perspective, have been looking at this over a period of time, clearly since the council started to consult around proposals. I think the impact of COVID has slowed the process, but also has meant that they have reviewed the work that they did previously. So we last at this sort of pro-formally at the start of this calendar year, and we were concerned, and we expressed concern around the workability of a diesel ban. That has moved on, as we will hear, and I think when Matt comes in, we'll pick you up exactly what we have, the line that we've formally been taking as an organisation. But this is an opportunity for you to hear for your own organisations, but we are keen to hear your views so that we can feed those into the process. And we have got an ongoing dialogue with Mike Jackson, the Chief Exec, and the senior officers around this to make sure we get workability within the context of, clearly we recognise the absolute need for us to get clean air within Bristol, but we also need to do it in a way that businesses and employers can adapt to measures that are feasible given the constrained conditions we're operating under. So I'm really now going to, because I don't think Matt's now joined and he will pick up later. The format is we're going to have a video. I'm going to introduce you to the colleagues. We're going to have I think they're going to show a short piece of film and then present, and then we're going to open up some questions. So James Morvan and Darren Hamilton are the two officers. Thank you for your time this morning to do it. And then we will, yes, go on the chat as we go along. I think that's all I have to say. So James, Darren, across to you.
Okay, hello everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. The bin lorry has just come across outside my window and it's affecting my internet connection slightly. So just to introduce, I'm James Morvan. I'm from the Transport Engagement team. So I'm supporting with the consultation. My colleague Darren is going to talk a bit later about some of the existing Travelwest support. And also my colleague Rob will be, from the comms team, will be helping out later on with some of the questions. Just to start though, we were going to show a short video, which is on the website. It's quite a good introduction. Libby, are you able to cue that video up?
COVID-19 has changed the way we live and travel. Fewer cars on our roads has made the air we breathe much better, and we have fast-tracked changes to improve traffic, cycling and walking routes. But if air quality goes back to the way it was, we would need to put in a vehicle charging zone to improve it again. Together, we can achieve better air without charging. We need your views on the two new clean air zone options in case our plans for clean air don't work without charging. Option 1 would be a clean air zone covering a small area of central Bristol where older, more polluting commercial vehicles and polluting private cars would pay to drive in the zone. On the map, this is referred to as small CAS-D. Option 2 would be option 1 plus a larger charging zone where older, more polluting commercial vehicles, but not private cars, would be charged to drive in the zone. On the map, this is referred to as medium CAS-C. Let's keep working together to make Bristol's air cleaner and healthier for everyone. We can all make a difference. Complete the online survey. www.bristol.gov.uk/CAS 2020. If you would like a paper copy or the information in an alternative format, please email transport.engagement@bristol.gov.uk or call 07775 115 909.
Okay, let's bring my slides up now. So So I've already done introductions. So the purpose of this briefing really is to just run through the CAS consultation, give you a bit of the detail about it, and also explain why we're consulting for the second time on this. If there's one thing that we ask today, it's that every business that's on this call puts in their response to the consultation, but also that you help us promote this to your employees and even customers. Later on, Darren's then going to talk about some of the existing Travelwest support that we have, and then we'll have some time for questions. So we've done the video. So we've been directed by government. We're legally required to reduce pollution in the shortest time possible. This is about reducing nitrogen dioxide. Now, the council's preferred stated approach is to encourage citizens and businesses to sustain the recent behaviour that we've seen. We've obviously seen huge changes because of the pandemic, and hopefully some of those changes can continue to help us with less air quality, less air pollution. Now, we've fast-tracked a few projects to try and support this. So you may have seen already the Bristol Bridge changes, for instance, some of the street space projects which have involved road space reallocation. Primarily these are around, it's about improving bus priority, improving space for people, and creating space for cycling. Another one of the fast track measures which is proposed is the closure of Cumberland Road to inbound traffic. And there's some other work around introducing more air quality measurement units, and some work around traffic signals as well. Now, all of this work, this may not be enough. We may still need a charging zone, and we're required by government to plan for that. And that's exactly what this consultation is about. If the measures are not enough, if we see a huge return to the roads of traffic, then we will need to bring in a charging zone. Which brings us on to the current consultation. So many of you may have already responded to the first consultation. This new consultation is required because we have different options. So the options are there's a small and a medium charging zone. Also, the diesel ban has been entirely removed. That is no longer on the table. And this consultation really is a chance for you to give us your say on those options, and also input on the kind of support that you would like to see as part of a charging zone. One of the changes I just wanted to highlight, based on a lot of feedback from the first consultation, we've removed Holton Street from the small zone. So that means you can drive down the M32 into the city centre and turn left without entering that small zone. So this is the map of option 1. This is the small CAS-D zone. Now, any non-compliant vehicle which drives into this zone as part of the charging zone would be charged, and that applies to private vehicles and commercial vehicles. You can see on the inset B map, this is where the change to Holton Street is. Now, option 2 is the same as option 1 with the small CAS-D in the centre, and then surrounding that there would be a medium size CAS-C. A CAS-C is charging for commercial vehicles which are non-compliant. So that are the two options. Now, In terms of which vehicles would be non-compliant, you can see on the left here are petrol vehicles, anything Euro 4 or above, and that's from 2005 for petrol vehicles, would be compliant in a charging zone. For the diesel side, you can see that there's greatly much more pollution in terms of nitrogen dioxide. So it's anything from Euro 6, which is 2014 onwards, would be compliant. In terms of exemptions and support, this is all yet to be fully agreed, but we are considering some exemptions depending on whether this allows us to get to the compliance date in time. So that would be for potentially low-income earners, small businesses, and taxi owners. The scope yet to be defined, but it would only be for up to 1 year. We're also working with the hospital. Now, the hospital obviously right in the middle of this clean air zone and would be greatly affected. So we're looking at options to really support the staff, patients, and visitors. There are a couple of ways that we can offer support. This is a really big part of the consultation around the loans, grants, and mobility credits. Again, it's yet to be confirmed how we go ahead with that. So we'd really like a strong response from business on this element. And then my final slide here is this is a request for support from this group. If you can help with our toolkit, we can share this out if you don't already have it, in terms of promoting this to your employees and your customers. So it's quite a short, brief presentation, but I'm sure we can get into some more of the detail in the questions. So my colleague Darren next is just going to talk about some of the Travelwest offers.
Unmute myself. Yeah, so I work within the business engagement team, and we work specifically with businesses right across Bristol. And we just help businesses to become more sustainable. So helping your staff and so on, then travel more sustainably, any support then along that. This is separate to any mitigation that you would get for cars, although we will be responsible for helping and supporting businesses with those when they come. But this is almost helping you get ready for cars hopefully when that comes into force. Within our team, we have 3 different people that work with businesses. So Andy Whitty, he runs a travel champion scheme where as a business you can get, if you have a champion, you get just support. So he sends out emails and newsletter to businesses, telling them about different offers. You can set up doctor bike sessions within your business to help support staff that cycle. You also get a cycle repair kit, which is in the photo below. So it's just stuff that if somebody comes without a lock or they need have a puncture, there's that there available for them. We also do e-bike loans, which Louise Buckley runs, and that's as pool bike. So you can try out a pool bike then for 3 months to see if it works in terms of staff getting to meetings and back. Also, they can try it for commuting as well. And she also runs the Wheels to Work program, which is for someone who's starting a new job. They can get free bus tickets for up to a month while they start working. I run and primarily lead on the grant scheme, where you can get 50% match funded grants for any measure. So including like cycle parking, if you want to buy, get some e-bikes for your staff organization, EV charging, you might want to upgrade to get a drying room, so at staff, to make it easier for staff to cycling. We have grants available for that currently. And we also have a few forums set up a Bristol-wide travel forum where businesses come together and they can share ideas, share best practice in terms of things that they're doing and moving forward. And we also have some localized forums as well in Hengrove and Temple Quarter. One of the services we also provide is a workplace travel audit, where we can look through all your business's policies, your measures that you have, your parking, look at the cost of your current parking provision, how much that might be costing business, all facilities that you might have, cycle parking, showers, like room, just see how they help support your staff to be more sustainable and hopefully help them to be more sustainable in terms of how they get to work. And we can then provide you with a report detailing what some short-term and long-term measures that you could introduce then to help your business become more sustainable. And that's for any size business, and that's free. We can also do some postcode analysis where you just look at where everyone lives, and you could almost then start segregating and maybe come up with a better parking policy then to make sure that staff that need to drive in can still access that, but also those who live close enough where they can, where they're more likely to be able to use sustainable travel, where you can pull specific policies in place to ensure that happens. We also have free access to a platform called Join My Journey. We're just in the process of re-procuring this, but we have some more information that coming out. But basically, it's a free platform that we pay for, that businesses can join up to. And we set up sort of journey sharing areas. So while the main focus was car sharing, you can also share walking and cycling journeys on there, particularly now, obviously, because it's COVID, car sharing isn't being, businesses aren't open and car sharing isn't being promoted. But when the time does come next year, when we are returning to work, there's also the option for cycling and walking journeys. And that's free. The platform is safe, and only businesses that are registered on the platform can use it. We have some areas already set up in the city centre and Temple Quarter, which the hospital and a few other businesses are joined up to. And we can also set up bespoke areas or for individual businesses as well as part of that. We also, so apart from the support that we provide to businesses, we also have a lot of individual support. So individual members of staff can actually use these. So we have a group of TAs that can provide route planning. So if you're someone who drives in, but you actually want to start walking, cycling, maybe doing a mixed journey where you take the bus and walk or take the train and walk, we actually, our travel advisors can meet with you individually through Zoom or face-to-face when that's possible, and actually talk you through your options, look at where you live, look at where you want to go, and then actually just talk you through the different options with that and provide you with support along those lines. We also offer free bus taster tickets for those who want to start trying to use the bus. We also do loan bikes, so you can borrow an electric bike for up to a month, or a normal, electric bike for 2 weeks, and a normal hybrid bike for up to a month. There's also free cycle training that we do for adults. And that's, so whether you're experienced cyclist or you're a newbie, they can tailor. You have 3 free hours that you can access then as part of that. If you're experienced cyclist and you have particular problems with something, might be cycling on the road and approaching junctions, they can actually tailor those sessions then towards you as well. We do like accompanied rides. For those of you who might be thinking about getting an electric vehicle, we also have an EV expert within the team that can actually talk you through the different models and talk you through the options and how the technology has changed if you're interested in getting an electric vehicle. And also you can sign you up to the 2-week demo scheme where you can use an EV for 2 weeks and just try it to see if it works for you. A couple other things quickly that we do offer. We have every year we do a travel to work survey, where businesses from anywhere across the West, actually, so not just Bristol, because we also do South Gloss, North Somerset, and Baines, where you can start the survey and you can get a snapshot of how your staff travel. Obviously, next March, we're making some changes depending on if most people are working from home, but it offers you a really good opportunity to get a snapshot of how your staff are traveling at that week in time, but also then see year on year, compare the changes. And I just done a sort of screenshot, so it also breaks down all the modes of travel that the staff use. And then we also, so one of the big things we've been doing, particularly while businesses have been in lockdown, is trying to help staff stay active even while at home. Because one of the things that we realized through lockdown, a lot of staff have become less active because you're no longer commuting, no longer walking, going out for lunch. So we've been having just different things to help support staff to be active. So we've been running some webinars on physical activity. We also have a couple challenges and free access to the Love to Ride platform, just to help and support staff being active. We also have on our website different support measures for those who might want to walk, for those who are cycling. We have a route planner and just different things. So I think Libby will be sharing the slides after, and there'll be, I just have the links then to the different support measures then that we have to support staff on both sides. The last thing, for those of you who do cycle already and might have little niggles in terms of with your bike, one of the things our team done, put together some videos showing you how to repair certain things, punctures, and really sort of simple fixes on your bike to help you keep cycling, hopefully, just for your sort of leisure activities and all during this lockdown period. And yeah, just a couple links at the end. So I think they'll be sharing the site, so you can then click on the links to get more information on the various things that we were talking about. Thank you very much. That's it from me.
Matt, I think you're on the call now, are you not?
Yeah, that's right. Many apologies, everyone. I was watching CNN live for 3 days and my computer was playing up, so I decided to restart. But it turns out that my computer is as efficient as for Counters of Georgia in terms of getting a result. So I've had to dial in on my phone. I just wanted to give a quick update of where we are, because many of you will be new to the whole clean air debate, and it has its own language of its own. And you have to kind of adjust to that in discussions. Just to give you an update of where Business West has been on this, we have from the start recognised this is a really important issue, partly because obviously there are mounting health concerns about the evidence that pollution does for health, and that's an issue for our staff, for our visitors, and also for Bristol's reputation. And it's also a big intervention on how our transport system works. We have been keeping an eye on this for several years now. Just to reiterate, this is a legal obligation because the UK government has lost several court cases around this, so cities are obliged to implement this. We were engaged when Bristol first consulted this back in the summer of 2019. Excuse me, I'm just going to sign off my phone here. I'll get back up on Zoom. Many apologies.
You okay, Matt?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Great. So when the proposals came first forward in 2019, we took a constructive view and thought that a diesel ban would be a poorly targeted approach. And instead, we consulted with our members and listened to several transport experts around the issues, and thought that a targeted approach, which targeted the most polluting vehicles, i.e. a CAS D, so targeted both commercial and private vehicles, would be the way to go. And the key element for us was, what's the funding and mitigation packages that go with that allow businesses to adapt? because clearly different types of businesses will have different impacts. So it's particularly impactful for those with freight and delivery vehicles, because those tend to be diesel or tend to be more polluting and may have a higher cost of adaptation in terms of getting new vehicles. Private vehicles will obviously impact on visitors and staff, but the costs of upgrading are relatively are more minor for those. And we also had a big discussion about the degree of where the boundaries were and the permeability of entry and what that meant, both in terms of what the additional cost would be if you were a non-compliant vehicle. So we've been very supportive of a clean air zone in principle. Our primary concern at the moment, though, is just about the degree of time in which businesses have to adapt to what is coming and what the extent of the zone is. And we would be supportive of a smaller zone. At present, there is a legal deadline to implement this by October 2021. And that requires Bristol City Council to do some substantive evidence gathering and put forward a proposal to central government to fund some of the adaptations we're looking to see. We think we need to have pace with doing that, and we also need to get your input, really, because your ability to adapt, your ability to upgrade your vehicles, and the timescale in which you're able to do that is really going to be a critical factor, and something which we're very keen for you to input into Business Council now. Thank you for that, and many apologies for the technical glitches I've been having.
Thanks, Matt. I think let's move to, we've had couple of questions in the chat which colleagues have started to answer, and we have a prior question before, but I wonder if we just go through, and if anybody could just chip in, because I'm operating Zoom from my phone, so I can't see everybody's faces. So if people have got a particular question they'd like to ask, please just come in now. No?
James, do you want me to just first comment on this question we've got from Frank?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things we are looking at specifically is community healthcare. This is, a big part of this is a public health intervention. So we want to be careful we don't have negative healthcare outcomes. So Frank and anyone else, I would really encourage you to be very specific in your consultation responses about this kind of thing. If you can give us as much information as possible, that can be in a separate letter if you need to do that, rather than on the consultation hub. We're just keen to get as much information as we can so that we can improve our decision making. We are doing a lot of work with other healthcare providers out there to try and understand what their requirements are.
James, can you just remind us when the deadline of the consultation finishes?
So at the moment it's November the 22nd, but it's likely that's going to be extended by a couple of weeks.
Just a quick word, James, if I may.
Yes, sure. Can you say who you are? Sorry. Frank
Noble from St Peter's Hospice. I guess, thanks very much for that update. That's really useful. I guess the thing to remember with the health system is it's a very complex beast. It's got public funded, it's got charity, it's got private companies, contracted private companies, etc. And we're all working really hard to deliver an integrated care system across Bristol. And my particular issue is that all of our money is hard won, fundraised mostly, and whether it's volunteers volunteering their time to drive our stuff around, or our cars bringing patients in, or servicing our shops. So I'll do what you've asked and put that in. But I guess my reflection is that there's a lot of people involved in the integrated care system through Bristol. Thank you.
Yeah, James. Hi, it's Alan Jarvie. Can I chip in something from? Is that all right?
Yes,
hi, it's Alan Jarvie from
Annabelle.
Yeah, thanks. Alan Jarvie from Atkins. So we're actually up at Aztec West. We're a large employer, 915 of our people sort of live in the BS postcode, but we're in and out of Bristol quite a bit just with the work that we do. The public transport link isn't brilliant, quite honestly, from Aztec West and into town, so we are reliant quite often on our people's cars, but we do try and plan the best we can, and we take part in the annual travel survey as well to see what we can and can't do. So my first observation really is, rather than the blanket ban on diesels, we're quite encouraged by the second consultation. So that's good, and the changes to the two clean air zones. So that's the two proposals. So we're positive, and we'll take part in the survey. But it's just really, there was a piece in I think it was in the Guardian today, which is, it just talks about changes in post-COVID into people's, I suppose, confidence around public transport. And, you know, people are actually seem to be going back to using their own cars and using their cars on their own. So I'm just wondering, you know, whether we see a spike post-COVID and actually whether, you know, the two current consultations will actually work. But I suppose we'll have to wait and see how that may change.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, just to address that one, it's really difficult for us, particularly in terms of trends. Now we've got another lockdown. We were just starting to see what the trend is looking like, and then it's gone again. I mean, there's some really positive things in terms of working from home. I never thought we would all be working from home in this kind of way. The amount of walking and cycling has gone up. But I think public transport use is a real concern that we've got. If this stays low and it stays at these levels for a few more years, and we see people move to private vehicles, then it's going to cause us a lot of issues.
Okay, Annabelle, would you like to come in? Annabelle Harford.
Yeah, hi. So Annabelle Harford from Avon Fire and Rescue Service. So I just wanted to get a sense of what you're planning in terms of sort of exemptions for the emergency services. Clearly at sort of 350,000 up to 750,000 per fire engine, new fire engine. We're not going to be replacing, you know, them all in one fell swoop. And you are probably aware that we've got an MOU in place with Bath and North East Somerset Council around their clean air zone for a time limited exemption. So I just wanted to get a sense of what you were planning for Bristol.
Rob can correct me if I'm wrong here, but all emergency vehicles are currently planned to be exempt. It might be good to get a bit more detail about your other non-emergency fleet as well. So if you can provide us information about that. All frontline emergency vehicles will be exempt from the charges.
James, you've got, there's a couple of questions, 3 questions, 2 from Matt, my colleague, and 1 from Terry Osborne in the chat. Are you happy to pick those up?
Yeah, okay, so 1 from Matt Griffith. So the way we tend to work with other funding streams is, this isn't always consistent, but usually if you live or work within the boundary of Bristol, funding will be available to you. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to be the case with the upcoming funding. Part of the issue is we don't even know what funding we're going to get, how much we're going to get, and how it's going to be used. So we'll try and target it in the best way possible. But again, and sorry if we're going to sound really repetitive on this, if you can add all of this to the consultation, if you can make the point that, you know, certain numbers of your employees are outside of the boundaries and they're going to be impacted, that again will help us with decision making.
And that second question about, sorry, boundaries. You just, sorry, there isn't an answer on that one. Is that what you're saying?
On the boundaries. So this is, so as in terms of, will funding be available outside of Bristol boundary?
Yes.
So yes, the answer was it has been in previous with other funding pots, such as the Travelwest funding, but I can't confirm it at this moment.
Okay.
And
okay, then you've got a question then from Terry Osborne.
Darren,
you might be better
placed
to answer that one.
Yeah, no, we do have grants for bike storage. Terry, if it's on private land and if it's just cycle parking, there isn't normally a need for planning for cycle parking. But is it private? If it's private land, then you should be fine. But I need to know the exact case. If you can, on the side, should have my. If you email me directly, then yeah, we can have a conversation, but there shouldn't be a need for planning permission in terms of a cycle parking if that's private land. But if it is public, yeah, there is a sort of long drawn out process then if it's public land that we as well within the council have to sort of like deal and overcome. But yeah, if you give me some more information in terms of your circumstance and what you're looking at doing, we can we can chat about it.
Darren, it would also be helpful, this is James again, just given that we are talking about trying to, and you're particularly promoting a more cycle-friendly city with less traffic driving through it. But I think for some of that public land, understanding how some of those measures are enshrined into the policy, the local plan, etc., so that actually it is easier to put in that storage, because it is a chicken and egg with this. Until you up and improve the facilities, people won't choose to necessarily to use it, and it will be on public land as well as clearly private.
Yeah, and just to jump on board, so that's one of the issues that we've been having internally, because just to give you sort of a brief overview, if we put in anything on the highway, meaning pavements on the road, we need to go through a TRO process, which is directed by from central government. It's been something we've been looking at internally within transport to try and change and try and get some changes too. But at the moment, the process is what it is in terms of, because that policy hasn't been changed. So even for ourselves within the council, like I was doing a scheme last year where I was trying to get some additional cycle parking on Gloucester Road, and it took me 8 months just to get some additional cycle stands. So that's a process that we have been looking at and trying to get some changes made to make it easier for businesses to get cycle parking on the highway where they do have the private land and so on, to do that, particularly within the city centre. So it's something we are looking at and trying to address, but it's a bit of a long drawn out process because we need to get some changes from central government to allow us to be able to do that.
It's pertinent for me to the things like clearly the cycling walking plan that the combined authority and the constituent authorities have signed off, and then also the Bristol Cycle Works campaign that we are partners in about encouraging cycling, but that requires end-to-end access with storage, safe and decent storage facilities and changing facilities. I've got a question would direct to me from Ben Holt. Ben, would you like to ask that question just to get that point of clarity?
Yeah, thanks, James. I just wanted to check for my understanding of having looked at the 2 proposed zones. I mean, this partly comes from a personal concern because I've got recently bought a new Euro 6 diesel compliant car, but I just wanted to clarify, because I did think it was odd before that very, very old petrol cars would be allowed in the zones, but any diesel cars will be banned. Is it now the case that it's going to be any non-compliant car couldn't go in either zone? And as a side question, for my benefit, is a Euro 6 diesel compliant car going to be allowed in the zones? Thanks.
Yeah, so you're absolutely fine with Euro 6 diesel. That wouldn't be charged in either zone. And it's only the smaller CAS D zone that would have a charge for private vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions or points of clarity you would like to ask?
I've got one, James, if that's okay.
Please.
I think what we're finding when we're talking lots of businesses is the degree of confusion because of a lack of clarity of messaging from council. Firstly, obviously around the diesel ban, and you saw that in Ben's question, but also this current new messaging around, we really hope not to have a charging zone because we hope pollution levels will stay low, but we might have to have a charging zone. First question on that, given the trends of what's happening to pollution since March and back up through the summer, where has it got to in terms of whether it's compliant or not? And what percentage chance will there be of there being a charging zone? Because some of the data we're seeing is that pollution levels have returned and therefore we're on course to have a charging zone. Could you give a view of that at the moment?
Yeah, so completely take the first point that you've made. We're trying to be as clear as we can. Part of the message that we in the Mayor's Office are trying to get out there is that if we can encourage more sustainable behaviour, if we can encourage people to change their fleets, and if we introduce some of these fast-track measures, then potentially that will get us to a point where we don't need a charging zone. So it's a bit of a call to action there. You know, having said that, there's still a lot of uncertainty. I don't have all the figures, but what we saw after the first lockdown is obviously a huge drop off in vehicle use, and then it slowly climbed up. It didn't ever get back to the pre-pandemic point. We are now again in another lockdown, and that trend has completely gone again. It's not dropped as far as it did on the first lockdown because we still have schools open, so it's a lighter lockdown. At this point in time, we still don't have all the data. The modelling isn't complete in terms of you know, what it's going to look like next year, particularly because not all of these fast-track measures are in place or fully embedded. So sorry, there's still a lot of uncertainty, so it's probably not the best answer for you there, Matt.
Do you know what timetable there will be for that, you to have a final answer about whether you haven't met or you have met compliant levels without an intervention?
So we are required to respond to government in December with evidence. So that'll be evidence of consultation and modelling. Not sure exactly what date in December. And then in February, we have to outline the full business case to government. I'll try and get in writing the, you know, bit more certainty on those dates because we're still not entirely sure.
I think, Matt, I'll add in some of the dialogue we've had with the council to date. We've expressed concerns about the, Matt, you're referencing timescales, about the need for, well, giving people a reasonable, you know, as much time as you can in order to look to adjust. At the same time, that be able to offer the package of measures for people to make those, and businesses to make those different choices. So I think we certainly to date have expressed a view, and I think we're keen to hear members' views today, is that you know, October of next year is not very far away at all. But I guess if the council's line is effectively, ideally we'd like to not have a clean air zone if people are willing to voluntarily move to more sustainable travel. We just worry that is somewhat optimistic, to say the least, and actually the council's line, we believe, should be actually there is a clean air zone proposal going to come forward. It's a question of exactly how it's going to be, not that it and work on the basis of that rather than of ideally we'd like not to have one, because I think business will, my sense is that business and employers will wait and see what happens. But the trouble is we may have a very short period of time in which businesses can make those decisions to adjust. And I think we make it very unworkable for lots of business at a time when, as I said at the outset, and a lot of businesses are under significant financial strain from what's going on from the impact of COVID.
Yeah, it is a really good point, James. And I think a lot of this is it is important to update business continuity plans. This is a risk that the charging zone can come in. We obviously want business, and the council loves certainty, and we don't have that at the moment, and it is a bit frustrating.
Can I just say, in terms of just the support that we provide, that at the moment we have our sort of like constant grants and so on until March next year. So I think one of the things to do is start planning. If you can actually utilize some of our services and so on between now and then to trial things, maybe then please, by all means, then put in those applications and so on now. And then we'll see what else comes out in the wash when we do have some more mitigation than as part of CAS.
Darren, that's very helpful. And I think we can make sure that clearly colleagues on the call have seen this, and we're going to make sure we're recording this session. We make sure we, as part of our work, we've got one of our top priorities around transforming transport and mobility, but and we'll be helped to encourage businesses to engage with the kind of resources and the opportunities that you've got for businesses to and their staff to make different choices. One question I have for you, James, and you potentially Darren, is in terms of in carbon terms for the clean air zone proposals, given that the council has committed to try and get the city to be net zero by 2030, does this improve? Does this start to decarbonise transport in a significant way?
That is a big question. I think, you'll see with a lot of our plans, a lot of this is particularly private travel. It's about trying to encourage mode share away from private car. The more we do that, the more we get towards a lower carbon environment. But a lot of the targeted measures we're talking about are very specific to air quality, and not everything in this to do with the CAS necessarily gives you a big carbon improvement.
Because I would just like in terms on that note, as James said, this is specifically to do with sort of harmful levels. But let's say everyone who currently drives switches to Euro 6 or below that, we would still then have a problem in terms of the sort of traffic levels within the city. So I think the sort of 2030 goal is more to do with getting people to switch from cars and vans and so on in general to more sustainable modes of travel, really, than in terms of helping the city overall.
Thank you both.
I think we've missed a couple of questions in the feed. If I can go back to one which was around what we know about car travel or vehicle travel. So the last, in terms of the census, the last proper census we've had was 2011, and we have very good data from 2011, although it's a bit out of date. If anyone wants to have a look at that, I'd suggest have a look at Data Shine, so it's all publicly available. In terms of more recent information, we have the travel survey, which a lot of you will participate in, which is an annual survey across the west of England. So we've got really quite good numbers on those surveys. And what we do know is a huge proportion of vehicle trips in the city and in the city centre are really short journeys, less than a mile or two. And those are the ones that we really want to be targeting for that mode change.
So is there any are you able to give any split between private vehicles and commercial? as of even 2011?
Yes, so I don't have the figures to hand, but what is stated on our website is more of the pollution is coming from commuting vehicles rather than commercial. But we can take that one away and try and get a response.
Have we got anybody else who'd like to ask any other questions? Please do keep pitching in, either on the chat or...
I've got a quick one. Sorry, it's me again. I mean, one of the two options on this consultation, the CAS-C is the wider zone that includes quite a lot of our inner industrial estates, so St Philip's, Bedminster, St Werburgh's, and that would upgrading vehicles. There are lots of small businesses there, and upgrading vehicles could be quite expensive, particularly for HGVs and LGVs. Where are we at in terms of the balance of evidence about the pollution impact of just having a smaller CAS-D versus having a broader CAS-C? And will you be running additional modelling looking at that impact before putting forward a proposal? Just to know what likelihood that a CAS-C will actually happen to start warming up businesses in those industrial estates, that it will be a substantial impact.
Yeah. So again, I don't have the answer at this stage. So modelling is ongoing. Again, the council has stated that a preferred option of the two is the smaller CAS-D zone, but we do need to provide evidence that that still gets us to compliance in the same time zones.
In the chat, we've got a comment from Sandy about the carbon question. Sandy, do you want to talk to that and explain where those figures have come from?
Hi, everyone. Yes, so that's come from the net zero analysis that the council did about a year ago. That sort of 40% reduction in single person car use is about mid-1980s traffic patterns. I think one of the things that's worth bearing in mind is when you put in a new system like a clean air zone or a congestion charge. So initially London saw about a 30% reduction in travel within the inner zone, but that's crept back up again as people have effectively incorporated the costs of the congestion charge into their business. One of the key things, the sort of learnings from that is that in order to maintain those gains, you then have to also invest in cycling bus lanes and that kind of thing, and pedestrianisation, in order to make sure that those gains stick. Otherwise, it just creeps back up again. And I'm interested in, James, in what the plans are around that. You know, Alan from Atkins talked about the need to improve public transport and cycling facilities and that kind of thing. It feels like it needs to go hand in hand rather than just a charge, but no improvements in sustainable transport, I guess.
Yeah. Thanks, Sandy. Yeah, I completely agree. In an ideal world, we would have introduced, incredible public transport measures, huge improvements before bringing in a potential charge like this. There are a lot of plans, and a lot of those have been fast-tracked because of COVID and additional funding that's being provided. So, for instance, the Bristol Bridge and Baldwin Street change in the city centre is a huge change, and that is specifically to provide priority for buses that were getting more caught up in the city centre. So it's about bringing forward some of those schemes that were planned for a few years away. So there's been huge progress in some of those schemes in terms of bringing them in faster than we would have done. But we also need to make sure that we actually help to embed behaviours and make sure, people are comfortable using the bus and comfortable cycling. So there's a whole there's a whole thing around behaviour change here as well. It's not just about putting in the infrastructure.
Thank you, James. We have a question from David Sproxton. Do you know the growth curve for private vehicle ownership? The younger generation seems to be more into Uber and car clubs than owning their own car. Happy to address that one.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about peak car the last few years. So this is on a UK scale. People seem to be getting their driving licenses much later or not at all. So there has been, it sort of has declined, but then actually again in the last couple of years across the UK, it started to uptick again. I'm not sure exactly how that applies to Bristol because we've probably got a slightly different demographic here. But that is something that we're actively promoting as well as a council.
Got a question from Matt, but before we do that, I just wanted to ask one myself about in terms of how do you work with combined authority, given that their responsibility for transport and also obviously the surrounding 3 authorities, let alone authorities beyond, given the natural travel to work area that this is going to have a the clean air zone has an impact for people who are travelling from across boundaries all the time. Do you work formally as a together with officers on the proposals you're working through?
Yeah, we do work quite closely with the local authorities, and it's getting closer all the time with the new political structures we have. What's particularly relevant here is the Bath charging zone, which is coming in March, and it's well worth having a look at exactly what Bath are doing and their exemptions. One of the comments that's come back quite strongly over the past few months is consistency. So a lot of businesses have said, please be consistent as far as you can amongst Birmingham, Bath, Bristol, because a lot of businesses are traveling between the different charging zones. So it's something we're very cognizant of.
Okay. You've got a question from Matt and then one from Brian Swallow from Enterprise Rent a Car. Are you happy to address those, please?
So Matt, is that about the actual charge, the financial charge?
Yeah, whether there are levels you've set in terms of if there is a charging zone, when non-compliant vehicles could still enter the zone, but what they will be charged to do so. Just that I know that some kind of HGVs, if you're a scaffolding firm, for example, and it costs you £100,000 to upgrade, you may prefer just to pass the cost on, and having that knowledge would help firms make that assessment early on.
Yeah, so the proposed charges have been published. They're on the website. So it would be £100 per day for non-compliant HGVs and £9 per day for private vehicles, most other small vehicles. That, as far as I'm aware, that's fairly set now, those charges. And again, they're the same ones that Bath have introduced. Does that answer the question, Matt?
And then there's a question then from Alka. Don't know the answer to that. What I would say is that up to about 2 weeks ago, when I was in another meeting on the One City plan, looking at carbon neutrality and just pushing forward on some of the sort of plans and so on around that. So I think from a Bristol point of view, we are still looking at becoming carbon neutral by 2030. And what that would mean and what would need to happen in terms of business, in terms of travel, in terms of the environment. So all those things are still taking place.
Thank you for that.
I know, Brian, you've confirmed, sorry, you just clarified that yours was a response, but do you want to talk about what you're seeing at Enterprise Rent-A-Car just briefly. Don't know if you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, James. I'm just coming off of mute now. Yeah, so I'm actually the MD for the Southwest for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. I was the operations director for London for the last 5 years. So obviously we've done a lot with car clubs in different places across the country. You know, one of the big things that we see is that when we put a car club vehicle out, we see car ownership go down, personal car ownership reduced by about 12 vehicles. Now that's higher in certain places and lower in other places. Brighton is a great example where that is more like 15, 16. And a lot of it is just down to the education of the residents and just kind of understanding what the product is. But yeah, I mean, I think this is we're staying very close to this consultation because we think that we could play a big part in all of this. I think there's definitely an opportunity for us to expand our car club offering in Bristol. You know, we're also looking at some other things like potentially mobility hubs, maybe a mobility hub near the train stations in Bristol, where it wouldn't just be a car club, it could be our daily rental offering as well, bike rental, obviously close to a train station. So there's a lot of different things that, you know, we would like to talk about, you know, in the future and ways that we believe we can help.
Thank you, Brian. That's helpful. And well, you and I are discussing this in any case, but I think absolutely right about how the things that you're offering can help us. I think I do feel though strongly there's going to need to be, you know, it's the culture and it's the behaviour change which is the big challenge for us all in terms of giving people the tools as well as encourage them strongly to make different choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds really positive and really welcome ongoing dialogue on that. And it's worth talking about the concept around mobility credits as well. So if this is something that we pursue, potentially if you had, say, a scrappage scheme for an old diesel, you could offer mobility credits instead of that cost. So that would be something like maybe even credits for car club use or a new bike or bus tickets. So it's trying to encourage people to give up more polluting vehicles and change their mode as well as just do a like-for-like swap.
Sure. There's a comment there just from Sarah Peace around the concern about the Bath CAS. Just a note. Don't think that one's that's really more just a note really. Are there any other questions that people would like to ask?
Well, just to sort of just to directly address Sarah's comment there as well. I think it is a concern as well for Bristol about the potential impact of pushing traffic elsewhere. We are looking at additional promotion of park and ride and things like that. But one of the things that we're also encouraging is people to really look at those boundaries as well and just comment on boundaries and any unintended consequences that we might have missed.
Okay. So
have we missed any questions? I feel like I might have missed one or two.
Has anybody spotted? Libby, have we missed anything that you could see in the chat? Or Anna? No. I don't think we have. Matt, are you happy to summarise from our end as to what, certainly from our perspective, our next step? Because obviously we've got a little group who've been working on this, part of our planning and transport group, and we'll continue to respond. And clearly, as you said at the outset, we see this as a really important agenda, but also something we need to make sure it's workable for business. But Matt, do you want to summarise at all?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thanks everyone for coming into this call and listening. There is a quite a lot of technical issues in the delivery of this scheme. And what we're going to do now is we're obviously looking to put forward a response to consultation, and would encourage you all to do so. But we're working with Bristol City Council and their team, who are putting together the mitigation package to help businesses adapt to a potential charging zone. In order to do that, Bristol City Council has to put a bid into central government, and central government has to approve that bid for the monies. And that approval will be based on how much central government thinks that case is robust and needed, and what the cost is. So that's really going to be a critical thing going forward over the next couple of months. And if you have a business that you think would require to adapt to either of the proposals on the table from Bristol City Council, and you can quantify what that adaptation cost would be, it would be very, very helpful indeed for you to feed that in, both to me, but also direct to Bristol City Council itself, because that is going to be the primary issue, I think, for many businesses, not seeking to oppose this outright, but thinking about how we can adapt and ensure that we have cleaner air going forward. But to do that and to get the money, we really do have to have intelligence from individual businesses. So tell us yourself, but also if you know others who might be impacted, if you could feed that in, that would be extremely helpful.
Good. So can I just say thank you very much to James and to Darren for taking the time. We'll make sure that we circulate around the link to the responding to the consultation. And we've recorded this so that it will go onto our website, and people can have a look at it or share it with colleagues. But yeah, can I just again thanks James and Darren on everybody's behalf, and thanks everybody for joining this morning.
Yeah, really appreciate you organising it. This is really useful for us as well. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Everybody have a good day.